Hello and welcome to Life Happens with Bahati Joyce. On this episode, we have a very exciting guest who is changing education in Africa through the use of technology. You're very welcome, Given Edward.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, I'm doing great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with just maybe tell us a bit about who you are and what do you do.
Great. I like to identify myself as an innovator working on education and technology and how we can use this to improve each other. So using tech to improve access to education and using education to improve usage of tech. And I focus mostly on secondary school students.
Okay, so you are an entrepreneur doing technology, but you focus specifically on education.
Yeah.
So is this like a specific sector in technology?
It is. It's an almost new thing, especially in Africa, because of the internet adoption and everything.
Okay.
But educational technology, or EdTech, as it's usually shortened, has been around for a while. Not so much among secondary school students specifically, or even primary school students. It's usually in unis. And so my work is to amplify it in secondary school students.
Okay, nice. Why education? Why was this specifically your interest?
Because of the power that I see education have.
Okay.
And that's usually a very cliche thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's true because when I started learning about technology,
Mm-hmm.
I had access to technology from a very young age, although it was mostly driven by my curiosity, but it was facilitated by being in an environment where I could access a computer. And by this, I mean an internet cafe, right?
Okay.
And so I kept being curious about tech. And it gave me an advantage because by the time I was in secondary school, I knew so much about tech that allowed me to move quicker in the field of tech than others. And with that came a feeling of guilt-ish.
Okay.
Where to date, I still look at secondary school students and think if they would have access to technology and information that I had, then perhaps we would have a lot more innovators beyond myself.
Okay, so what you're saying is you were kind of like the privileged few who would be able to access things like internet cafe, but there are those who don't have that kind of access?
Yeah, and it's beyond just technology, it's also about information.
Okay.
Right? So content like, for example, things like emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or programming, or basic things like English as a language. There are things that I was able to learn from a very young age. Like I said, it was highly driven by curiosity, but then it was very much so facilitated by being in an environment where I could have those things. And so I feel like if we put these things inside people,
Mm-hmm.
we can get there, because that's how I see myself. I see myself as for example, this bottle of water,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
In itself, it's just a container, but what gives it value is what is inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I see myself, in the sense that generally I'm empty. I was just fortunate enough to fill myself with content that makes me do great things.
Right.
And I believe we can take this content and put in every other young person, secondary school students,
Nice.
and then we can replicate.
Okay, so giving them access to the information that I guess also people around the world, they have this privilege, but the internet access here in Africa is still growing. So without trying to reveal your age too much, because you did mention internet cafe and things like that, well, now things have changed, right? You find that people are more on their mobile phones. So maybe tell me about the progression of technology from the time that you had this vision, this dream, and how has technology evolved and changed?
Technology was seen as a luxury.
Okay.
For quite a while. When you see a young person on an internet cafe, your first thought isn't that they are learning. And it was even true when I was in secondary school.
Mm-hmm.
You see a young person in an internet cafe, the first thing you have in mind is they are watching porn.
What?
Which for most part was true.
Really? Sorry. So for some of us, we were doing work.
Right,
you know, we were doing schoolwork.
Right. A lot of young people faced that challenge.
Yeah.
Whereby there was that image of when young people are on the internet, they're watching porn.
Internet was seen as a problem.
Yeah, so there was so much supervision around it.
Okay.
Like for those who were fortunate enough to have internet at home, it was like you're not using it without your parent being around, and you're not using it past 8 p.m. or something.
It is the devil.
Yeah, it was just taken heavily than it shouldn't. It should have been.
Okay.
And so technology evolved with fighting that mindset, but also at the same time fighting feeding young people, thinking that that's all they can do. So on one hand, there's this negative perception of internet, but at the same time, you want young people to come up without taking that negative connotation in their minds so that they can innovate. But the first thing we need to do is to make sure everybody gets to the basic level of tech.
Which
right?
what's the basic level of tech?
Access to a smartphone,
Okay.
access to a computer, because the biggest challenge with tech right now, especially in Tanzania and Africa, is we are fighting against the first, second, third, and fourth industrial revolution at the same time.
Wow. Okay,
Right?
that's profound.
We have people who are working on artificial intelligence and virtual
Well,
reality.
way ahead of the
Exactly.
curve. Yeah.
In the same society where some people are still trying to access a basic smartphone. You get so we have this so much thing going on.
But why do you say we're fighting?
Because technology is evolving faster than our ability to catch up, and that's just the trickiest thing about technology. In the past few years, it was easy for you to have your idea and start in a garage like some Steve Jobs or some Wozniak or Bill Gates and scale. It was easy. But right now, new technologies require a lot of investment and
That is
data,
true.
so much so that you cannot start anyhow.
So there's one thing we've touched on, which is the mindset. So from what I've learned from you is that we just had this particular mindset that was kind of slow to adapt and adopt technology.
Yeah.
Okay, so now people are kind of transitioning and realizing, oh, actually internet is a tool, and a tool can be used for good and for bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what? I know that internet is useful. Where do I go from there as a young person who's looking to innovate?
When you're in a society like Tanzania, for most part, you're going to have to be a self-starter. To share my experience, I would say the first thing you need to do is get to the basics, the ABCDs of tech, and figure out what are you trying to do about it. Are you trying to increase its accessibility?
Okay.
Are you trying to use it to create new products? Are you trying to change policies around it? Just figure out what you want and do your research on it. So if you're trying to build products yourself, then learn about what you need to know. Is it a certain programming language?
Right.
Is it some certain framework, some tools? If you're trying to change some policy, do some desk research. What has been done up to now? What is missing? Where can I chip in? If you are trying to increase the accessibility to it, then figure out what's stopping people from accessing internet right now.
So what problem are you solving? You need to define it.
Are you solving?
Okay.
And then just there is your entry.
Right.
You
Now
know?
I want to get personal a bit.
Yes.
Because you were like, oh, my story, my journey.
Yes.
But we haven't actually heard your story given.
Yes.
Who is given? Where are you, coming from? How did this dream start?
I never know how to answer that because I've actually never taken time to put that together.
Okay.
My approach to life has been very, very much in the moment than planned. I'll tell you that. Since I was a kid, the famous question is, what do you want to be when you grow up? I never had an answer to that. I still don't. I've just always gone with what makes sense, especially at the time, and that is what led me here. So, my story, you're gonna have to guide me with questions.
Oh,
here.
come on.
Yes.
I'm going to have to dig?
Yes.
You're going to make me dig?
Yes.
Okay, what inspired you to think, first of all, I want to solve this particular problem in the sector of education in Africa?
Yeah.
Let's start from there, because I know that you have two startup companies and you got recognized for them. But let's start from where the journey began.
It was in two parts. One, my interest in tech, which started from a very young age, and then later on, my interest in education.
Okay.
And then after all, I was like, hey, maybe I can use tech to improve education. And then I put it together. So I started being interested in tech from a very young age. I think my very first exposure to tech was from my uncle, who used to study information systems. And he would come to my grandparents' place where I stayed. And with that, I would see him use a computer and I'd be very fascinated. He always came with a bunch of CDs, like 50 or 100, and just be copying things. I'm not sure if you used Windows XP or Windows 98, but there was that kind of thing. I think it's still there today. Whenever you're copying something, you just see the folder jump from one place to another. And he knew it would take hours, so we'd just leave, and then I'd just be there, wow, at how that animation is moving. And I'll stay there for hours and hours. And then after a while, he noticed my curiosity, and he was like, okay, maybe you can help me with this and this. And it was basic things like taking a CD, opening the CD and putting it in.
He started onboarding you with that.
And then after that, he left. And then I was curious. So I started going to internet cafes, reading about innovation, programming, watching YouTube videos, because that's how I learned programming, through YouTube.
What?
Yeah.
You learned to program, like you taught yourself?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, so I would go to YouTube with my counter book, pay some time, learn about programming, and then after that I would just go offline and test the code, and then tomorrow morning I'd come again and do that. And since I was already curious in tech, I knew some things. So the owner of that internet cafe would give me free computer time in exchange to troubleshooting for the customers.
That's very interesting. I want you to hold that thought. We're going to go on a break, and we'll be right back. This is Life Happens with Bahati Joyce. Stay tuned with us. We will be right back. Hello and welcome back to Life Happens with Bahati Joyce. Today I have a guest who calls himself an ed tech entrepreneur. He has been recognized internationally for the work that he's doing, transforming education in Africa. Given Edward, welcome back. So you were just telling us about your story and your journey, starting off with getting an interest in technology, being exposed by family, your uncle, and then you said you had an interest in education. So I want to get to the part about education, why it's an interest, and what it is that inspired you to transform education.
So, like I said, my introduction to education technology was separate. I was first introduced to technology, then years later, I generated interest in tech. And for me, it wasn't like this is my entry into education. It was just, I think I can do this about this. And this was when I was in Kibasila, where I did my A-levels. I used to live in Tegeta, so that's like 2 hours student time, right?
Student time.
Yeah. And so I couldn't stay behind for discussions. I had to leave the moment class ends. Because I couldn't stay behind for discussions, it just came to me as a thought as, why do I have to be here for this discussion to happen? Can it happen when I'm at home and these guys are here, and maybe somebody else is in Delano, Stanga, or someplace elsewhere? And so I figured maybe let me create a platform for that to happen. All right, to the first version, I put it out and students started using it. And then after that, it picked up. A year later, we had students from different cities and even countries who would just visit to read the discussions.
Wow.
And so that grew. Then after that, there was the Queen's Young Leaders Award.
Oh, sorry, what was the platform? What's the platform?
Elimu.
Elimu, wow.
Elimu.com. And so after the award, it increased the exposure to the platform.
Wait, you just moved from like, I created this platform, and then after the award, take us back to, leading up to the award.
Yeah.
How did you get that global recognition? And I'm saying this for the benefit of fellow young African entrepreneurs who are watching you.
Yeah.
And they want to know the journey from idea to international recognition.
So I usually believe you should just do what you can with what you have, right? There's a quote that says you don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the first step and everything will be clear.
Right.
As you have shown the determination to move. So that's what happened with me. I just started my Elimu, and then after that, somebody nominated me, because the next thing I know is I'm getting a call from the UK, and they're saying you've been nominated for this Queen's Young Leaders Award, and we want to interview you. At first, I thought it was a scam, mostly.
You're like, yeah.
Because First is the Queen. Right? That's one.
Her Majesty the Queen wants to interview me.
Exactly. And two is because there was no record of it anywhere on the internet. And that's because we were the very first batch of it.
Oh, right. Okay.
And so I was like, hey, what's the worst that can happen?
Could be kidnapped, taken to the UK.
Yeah, I mean, it's the UK. But what I thought was, let me give it a shot. And so we had an interview. At that point, I was in UDOM doing political science and public administration.
Okay.
And that's because in my A levels I did HKL, even though I'm into tech and whatever.
What is HKL?
History, Swahili, and literature or language.
Okay.
Depends on who you ask. I tried studying computer science, but you need to have studied physics and maths for you to get computer science. So I had settled for political science and public administration while I'm continuing learning computer science on my own.
So you were studying political science in university?
Yeah.
But teaching yourself programming?
Yeah, because in the end of the day, I decided I just want to know computer science. I don't need to prove it to anyone. And that's what our degree is about.
Wow.
So I figured as long as I know computer science, I'm not doing this so that anybody can say, oh yeah, he has done that.
Okay.
And so I did that. And so when the call came in, I'm from the UK, I was in UDOM. And I said, okay, let's do the interview. And then we did some interview, and they asked me for some documents, which I sent. And then after that, I got another call from South Africa. Okay. Which was ALU, African Leadership University. They had just started the university, and they had started their applications for the first batch, and somebody sent me that link, and I applied, and they said, you didn't make it, but you are waitlisted. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna invite you to come to South Africa, stay a month with us, and yeah. But this doesn't mean you accept it. We just want you to see our learning model. And for me, I'm like, nah, they're kidding. They're just being like, soft about it, so that I don't go queue for it. And so I went to my lecturer, my PSP lecturer, and I said, I need to go to South Africa for a month. And his word, and I quote, was, if you lift your foot here, you repeat a whole year. Wow. Right? He didn't even blink twice. And I was like, nah, you're kidding. Really? And he said, yeah. If he said, those were his words. And so I did my pros and cons, and my strategy was, I'm going to go to South Africa. I'm going to kill it so much that these guys will not... They will have to take me. They will have to take me. That was my strategy. Because now you forfeit University of Dodoma, the entire year. You'd have to repeat it. Exactly. So it was like, I have to go there, kill it. Otherwise, I'm repeating a year. They're going to kill me. and so I hadn't made up my mind until one day before the flight. Okay. And I was in Dodoma. And so one day before the flight, I was like, you know what? I already know how a no looks like, so let me take a chance with a yes, right? Because if it's a no, this is what no looks like. This is the path. The path is defined. This is what no looks like. Right. I had to see what a yes looks like. So it was on an afternoon at 1 p.m. I just took my things, went to the bus stop, came to Dar. The next day I left. That's such a big risk that you took. It was a big risk. It is, but at some point you have to make trade-offs. I mean, you weren't thinking like, what if it doesn't work out, and ALU hadn't given you... It's already not working out. I'm already doing political science. So if this is the fallback plan, I think I'm already accustomed to it by now. And they didn't give you any guarantees, like you would definitely get in? They didn't. But my strategy was very clear. I'm going to go there, I'm going to kill it. And they're not going to be able to live without me. Because in as much as they are saying that, in as much as they are saying that this will not influence anything, I know that that's just something they are saying so that people don't go there to kill it. But I believe it because the moment I landed, we were having dinner, and they said, guys, we were serious. We're actually not making decisions. Everyone making decisions are actually in Mauritius. So I was like, I made a bad bet. But you know what? I'm here. You know, it's raining here, so I might as well enjoy it.
It's very important for at least for me, what I'm learning in this entrepreneurial journey, that the risks that people take.
Yeah.
So now transition that into, you know, well, I have actually 2 questions I want to ask you. One, did you get any local recognition? Because everything you've told me right now is international recognition. And from what I gather from your story, okay, you were minding your business, trying to solve a problem that was real to you.
Yeah.
You know, I can't have discussions because I live far. So why don't I create a platform that can allow other students to have discussions, even if they're in different regions? You do that, and without, you know, realizing it, it picks up, it does well, and you get international recognition. What about the local support?
The hardest part was getting support. Because one, I'm a secondary school student, right? And two, there wasn't anything put in place to support people, especially secondary school students. That's why I'm passionate about secondary school students, to help them scale. And the third thing is, there was a certain persona, a certain identity that a young person needed to have to be taken seriously.
What do you mean?
It's you have to behave like an adult.
Okay.
For you to be taken seriously, and that is still very big to date. So when I was saying that, that informs my currently social media interaction, is I'm trying to break that a lot. A lot of young people have to behave a certain way or act a certain way, which is too mature for their age, just so that people can see them as people who are serious. Right? You have to talk a certain way, dress a certain way, comment about things a certain way, etc, etc, etc. And for me, I figured, I'm not gonna change this from my high horse, sitting up there like, hey, I'm giving Edward,
I have 2 English names.
I have 2 English names.
Why do you? Sorry, we'll get to that.
And I figured this can't happen anymore. I want young people to know that you can be young and still be able to change things without having to alter your youthfulness. Right? That's why I try to if you'd gone through my social platforms 3-5 years ago, it was super serious. But right now I've changed that. I try to talk about jokes, memes, comment things differently, just to
reach.
Because you can't
young people.
You can't influence people from your high horse.
Right.
You have to go where they are. So that informed my push into education.
Right.
And innovation, and about recognition. That's why it was tough.
Over here locally. What about, some of the local institutions? For example, why didn't you decide to go through Buni Hub or other institutions that I know are there?
I went to Buni. I pitched a number of times.
Okay.
There, unsuccessfully. I've never. I think this is just a me thing. I've never successfully pitched anything. At Buni.
You're kidding.
And won. I've never.
So is it a problem with young people need to know more and what yongeze? That's what we say. Add value to yourself, or is it a problem with the ecosystem?
And that's why I had said earlier that as a young person in Tanzania right now, what I would advise is you need to be a self-starter. Figure out what you need, because there are very few benchmarks or launch pads where you can start from nothing, just saying, I have an idea, I'm trying to make it happen.
Right.
So far, I don't know any single space in Tanzania
that
for
can
that.
do
I
that.
think the first time we did that, or I experienced it, was through Khan Hackathon,
right,
where we got people who just had ideas,
and they were able to,
and they were getting some support to launch that.
So I have 2 questions. One, just briefly, how can we then support and help those young entrepreneurs in Tanzania, like through what you're doing, but also where is education and technology heading in Africa? How can we transform education in Africa?
So the first thing, how can we support them? We need to not look at young people as one thing.
Okay.
We need to cluster them into different areas. There are young people who don't have access to technology. There are young people who have access to technology but are just consumers. There are young people who have access to technology and are creators. Right? We need to put them in these buckets and see how the goal is to move them from one place to another as much as possible, and put them in these groups like that. Let's have a pipeline, and I'd say we are there because there are new combinations that are introduced to foster more computer scientists.
Okay.
So that's good. Maybe more efforts are to be done on the private sector. Let's find our way to create a roadmap for people who are just starting in tech. And lastly, on the future of education in Africa, it's that education is going to be very on demand. The way I see it, we are heading to a place where we are reducing the gap between when you learn something and when you apply it.
Okay.
Right? The world is moving so fast that it's demanding people to immediately apply what they learn.
What they've learned.
But apart from that, you have to constantly learn. And so the goal, or rather the way I see things are going is, there are these lists that are usually produced, top 10 skills in 2021 or in 2025. And one thing you notice about this list is they change very fast, almost every year. So really the biggest skill is to learn how to learn and how to learn quickly.
I like that.
So that whenever anything changes, you can easily adapt.
And I think even from your story, education in Africa is changing.
It is changing.
You know, like I always tell people, these systems were handed down to us. They were not really ours. So we've adopted these, you know, healthcare system, education system, all these systems that were handed down to us. And maybe we're realizing that we need to transform and change these systems.
The thing with that is, I usually say the education system is not broken. It was designed that.
Ooh.
It just happens that what we need right now is different.
Well, it's outdated, you know.
Exactly.
The education system hasn't changed. It's outdated.
So we need to go back into what do we want to get out of education, because
Right.
right now what we are doing is we are trying to fix it.
Right. Ooh.
Right.
We just need to break it and start over.
We're trying to fix, but we can't fix something that's not broken because it worked 50 years ago for that context.
Right.
Right now we should go back into what are we trying to achieve.
So we should change it, or
we should question every element of it.
Right. Okay. That's good. That's
so
good.
if anything is to stay, it's because we have decided for it to stay.
Right.
Not because we haven't seen the need to change it. Like there's a difference between when you are looking at something to figure out what to change, and when you are looking at something to figure out why something should stay.
You have to question, why should this thing stay?
Exactly.
That's excellent. So what's the phrase you said? Learn
how to learn and how to learn quickly.
Learn how to learn and learn how to learn quickly. That's so good. Thank you so much, Given Edward. In literally one sentence, what is the future for Mtabe, for Elimu, for Given Edward? What does the future look like?
One, it's digital. Second, it's media, TV programs, TV show, and finally a TV channel. Then after that, it's a chain of secondary schools. Wow,
your very own secondary schools.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's been a fab time here being inspired by Given Edward, who has been internationally recognized for his work in transforming education. And he says the future looks bright. He's looking to create his own secondary schools and continue to change education in Africa through the use of technology. And this is what we do here at Life Happens with Bahati Joyce. We connect through our stories, we share ideas, we dream big, and we make life happen. So stay tuned with us.